and welcome to Creating in Color, sharing the creative endeavors of people of color. I'm your host, Kaybe, and today I'm joined with Sadako Leong-Suzuki, a storyboard revisionist whose past projects include Spirit Riding Free and Shovel Knight's Spectre of Torment. How are you today, Sadako?
I'm doing good, KB. How are you?
I'm well, thank you so much for asking. So, Sadako, or Dako, whichever you prefer.
Both are fine.
Oh, okay, Sadako or Dako. What is a, what is a storyboard revisionist?
A storyboard revisionist, I guess, to me, is sort of like the junior pre-position to becoming a storyboard artist. And so what we kind of do is we receive the boards from a storyboard artist and a director who's looked over their boards. And judging off of the director's notes, our job can be anything from like just cleaning things up a little bit because like I work in TV, so our schedules are much faster. So sometimes boarders don't have like the time to make everything look as neat or like as on model as they can be. Most of their focus is like on composition and stuff, obviously. So like what I might do is like help make things a little bit more model, add a few more acting frames here and there, and just sort of like clarify the scene. Also do things like punch up acting, or on a rare occasion, also as a bit of like a challenge for me, if I'm comfortable with the director, even doing a little bit of reboarding.
Okay, so a storyboard revisionist is like a junior storyboard artist, which I
Yeah.
know in feature they don't have revisionists. They have storyboard junior art or junior storyboard artists or
Right.
something like that. With that in mind, do you see your goal after, and normally I would ask this later on, but do you see your goal of potentially becoming a storyboard artist, or
Mhm.
do you feel that people can create a career out of being a revisionist?
That's a good question, actually. Personally, I do want to go into becoming a board artist, but I also know people who, whether, I don't know if I've never met anyone with the goal to become just a revisionist and stop there. However, I have met people who have gone onto boarding or even directing, and then later in life, because it's just works out better for like their sort of lifestyle or like the the like pacing or energy of like however their life is going, that revisionary like matches that more, because boarding and directing I think are much more intense than doing revisions. And so for people that need a little, like if things are happening in their personal life, that it would be make it a little easier, they might switch back to being a revisionist. So I don't know many people who like aim for being a revisionist. I don't see why
Mm-hmm.
not, I guess, but it might be a thing about like if it matches sort of your life pace or not. That was a very long ramble as to how I felt about that.
No, thank you very much. How did you get started in the animation industry?
Uh, I guess in the industry, I mean, like classic art people things. I've been drawing for a long time. um, but in terms of actually getting in the industry, so I went to college for animation at Loyola Marymount University near LAX, where the planes live. And through that, I met one of my future coworkers, Ellen Szynski. The year I graduated in 2018, I was doing the post grad work void crawl of being like, hey, does anyone know any work for me? And we happened to work together in an animation club. And so she saw that I was looking out for work, and she was like, oh, do you want to just do more intense versions of what you were doing, aka being a secretary? And I was like, sure. What does that mean? She was like, notes. You're gonna become a PA. And so from there, I went to start as a PA on Spirit Riding Free.
And just out of curiosity, what did you do on Shovel Knights? Like, that's a
Oh,
video game.
oh yes. So I guess that's technically part of the journey as well, isn't it? But when I was a sophomore, so what was that? Like 2015, I got an internship with Yacht Club Games, who are the developers of Shovel Knight. Um, and I became an art intern. And so what that kind of entailed was at the time they were working on Spectre of Torment. So that was Spectre Knight's sort of like own little game. And so they paired me up with the lead artist on the game, Nick Wozniak, who has done like majority of like the art direction and art on the Shovel Knight sort of series of games. But so he sort of mentored me, and they were like, hey, watch and talk to him and what he's doing. So that's a lot of making assets, working on backgrounds, doing animation, right? For the sort of like pixel art game, right? And so I was tasked specifically with actually in the game, mild spoiler, not really big spoiler. Spectre Knight's like a dead dude. He like
Oh man.
yeah, I know, a Spectre. Wow. He's cool. But like in the game, you have like flashbacks to his past when he was like alive. And so my job after all these studying with Nick was to then take his already made animation assets for when he's like in his Spectre Knight sort of like skin or appearance, and then reskin him as, I think his living name was Donovan. The name changed from what it was in development, so that's why I always forget a little bit. But so I reskinned him into what his living version was, and so I did all those animations, all of his poses. I just redid those, as well as some like background art and some other things. So it was pretty cool in terms of like I was there for like all their dailies, conversations, walk arounds. They're like small team, which they had like only like 12 people. It was pretty small, but just kind of also learning about how they made Shovel Knight, which I really liked as a game, which is why I reached out to them. And at the time, I had kind of been on like a short binge of being like, ooh, games are really cool narratively. That would be really neat. I like storyboarding, but also I love the way that games are doing narrative. I want to look into that. So that's why I think in the end, I realized that I much more prefer working maybe in like a TV realm, but it personally was also really cool to just see that process and even get to learn that. So yeah.
Nice. Do you think you would ever consider going back into games?
I think I could. I think it would really depend on sort of like the studio vibe and the project, which maybe sounds picky, but at the same time, I think one thing I definitely learned, and again, nothing against anyone in the games industry or anything. I think personally it was just that I was not as well versed in video games as I think I could have been. Like when you're working in any sort of like creative field, like collaborating with people, it's helpful to sort of like know projects or know previous titles in games to sort of like speak that language, right? And I think I'm a little bit more well versed in terms of like movies and TV versus games, and so I think that came up for me a little bit, and so like sort of clicking didn't really happen until really late, really late in the game, or like like really late into my internship. So I think long term, I would really need to be able to sort of vibe with the people and the project, especially, and I don't even know how I would contribute now that I think about it. I guess like cinematic cutscenes is probably the best place where I would fit in that, but there are certain exceptions, like Double Fine Studios that does like Psychonauts, that I know would be absolutely the only exception that I would be like, oh, hello, yes, I will literally do anything for you. But
Yeah,
I love your stuff.
I'm right there with you.
Yes.
I'm right there with you. And to plug a previous episode, we did interview a cinematic animator.
Wait, I think I
on the
listened to that
podcast.
one. Was it?
It was Daniel.
Yes.
What does your daily routine look like?
Sorry, I have the song where it's like wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy. That is not how my day.
Oh, you feel like Kesha. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So your daily routine is that music video.
Yeah, exactly. No. I do wake up similar to the song, but unlike feeling like P. Diddy, I usually just crawl out of bed, especially now that it's work from home. I crawl to my Cintiq, and then I, do all the login stuff, not interesting. And then I usually, if I don't already have like an assignment from like the previous day or the previous week, I'll check in with like my prod team and directors. So on our team, um, we have a prod coordinator who also helps coordinate all the board team and make sure we all have work. So I usually check in with her and say like, "Hey, I'm free. Let me know if any of the directors need help on anything." So because I'm kind of a floater revisionist. Most teams will have like one or a few revisionists per different board teams, and then might have like a floater, so someone who just kind of does revisions wherever they're needed. So that's kind of me. Um, and so I'll check in and be like, "Hey, if anyone needs additional help uh, from their team, let me know." And so I kind of just wait until I'm given work, and then usually when she's like, "Hey, one of the directors need a hand," I'll hit up that director via like GChat or something, and just wait for them to hand me something out. And so I think an interesting thing for working remote like we have been, which has been my whole experience of being a revisionist so far, because I didn't start until semi recently, a year. Is that recent anymore? I don't know. But directors will have different styles of handing out these days. Like I feel like back when you were working in the office, you might like go into their office and have a little meeting, or they'll come talk to you. But like the way that we do things kind of now, directors might just like shoot you an email with like the file and like a whole list of notes, or they'll just chat it to you, or they'll just like, "Hey, can we jump in a call?" And then I'll like talk about the sequence with you as we go over it via basically kind of like a Zoom call. So any one of those sorts of handouts happen. I receive the file that I'm supposed to work on and whatever notes. I also might take my own notes if we have a handout. Like if like an overall note is like, "Hey, watch out, this character seems to be constantly off model," or like the size comparison is wrong on this character. Please fix that. Just keep an eye on that. So take all those notes, take the file, and judging based off of the time I'm given, I mean, I will get the work done, but I'll just kind of like, I personally like to first watch through the sequence like maybe one or two times, and sort of like make a list for myself in terms of like, I tend to like to give myself the hardest stuff first and then work from hardest to easiest. I know some people like to just work chronologically through the sequence, but I tend to do it that way. And then so I'll just make myself a little to-do list, and I'll just chug forward until I'm done. So like I mentioned earlier, it can be anything from just kind of like cleaning up art, or adding acting, or like reframing things. And then after that, I'm like, "Hey, I'm done." And then I ship it off, or I send it back to my director, who, depending on how I did, they'll look back at it. They may or may not send it back to me for notes. Then the process sort of repeats.
So you were an intern, and then a PA, and then a storyboard revisionist.
Yeah.
How was it to switch your gear between all these different roles? You were a artistic or artist intern,
Mhm.
and then PA, which is very logical note
Yeah.
taking, like you said, and then you're switching over here to storyboard revisionist. How was it to switch your brain between these roles, and how did each previous role prepare you for the next one?
Well, I would say the easiest switch was from intern to PA, because my internship was like in 2015, and then I didn't get my PA start until like 2018. So it was mostly like because there was a time gap that I was able to make that sort of transition. And I think part of it is in terms of becoming a PA, like I kind of mentioned a little bit, I had been working with my school's animation club at the time for about like all 4 years that I was in college. And so that required taking a lot of notes and learning how to do that, and ask and clarifying things with my team. So I think doing those club activities, I feel like I sound like one of those people that's like, "You should get your kids to do extracurriculars because they'll learn all these things." And I'm like, "Yeah, a little bit."
Yes, well,
Yes. But I think that actually super helped me kind of put myself into like an organizational mindset of like, again, so like organizing, taking notes, and collaborating with a creative team, which I think all became very important for when I became a PA. so like all those sort of like organizational stuff, right? And with like a creative twist. And so I guess from there, I went PA to coordinator, and then around this time last year was when I made the switch to revisionist. And I think what did help me from going to from production to revisionary is that very thankfully, while during the whole what was it it was like almost 3 years of working production, I had tried to at least do some creative work during all that process, which I think helped me transition to then from production to revisionary. And that included, uh, very thankfully, the show that I'm on now was also the show that I was last on in production as a coordinator. So I had that additional time of, I already knew the show, I already knew the characters. I was one of the first production people on our team on this show, like from the very beginning. So I was already very familiar with our scripts and our characters and our designs and sort of the pacing and look of our show, which I understand not everybody gets that. That's very like you're often just dropped into the middle of stuff. But so again, I think what helped me make that transition was taking the time to study our characters, familiarize with our sort of style, and even things that if you can't do that, just taking the time to even just talk broad story and art stuff with my team. So, like, one of the biggest things that I saw from one of our directors say is like something that's really important for revisionists specifically is to learn your shorthands, like, make a really good shorthand for yourself. Because, like, it makes it so much easier. And, like, I will say, it's so much like little shout out to character designers and biz dev team because if like making good shorthands for storyboards can be so much easier, so much faster and better if you have a good character design. Like that's just a weird segue. It's just like then as like a board artist or a revisionist, right, where our job is not to do all the little details, right? It's so much easier to make your characters recognizable if their designs are already good. So I think I took the time to study like our show characters, but I'm sure you could also just do this with different shows in your own time and just look at their final design and then just try to practice a shorthand on my own, right? Like if they're simple shapes, just try to get those and then add additional, like I think people will call them like perspective lines. So like common ones are like at the wrist or like at the waist. So like my hairband works really well. I realize there's no camera on this podcast, so you can't see. But like if you're listening and you're an artist, like your wrist, your body like moves in perspective. And so like having like places in your clothing or just having those indications. So like learning good places to make those sort of shorthands, I think was a big part of preparing for that. And also, yeah, I guess, wow, I'm rambling a lot.
You're fine.
This is just how it's going to be. But I think also a huge part of what helped being in production and going to art was that I learned a lot about the pipeline working in production, which I do think actually really helps me as a revisionist because I can think ahead in terms of what I'm doing and what that means for the people following afterwards. So like us, like I feel like this is can be applicable on every show, but most of my experiences like on 3D CG shows is that like assets is a huge question, right? So like I cannot willy-nilly just draw a random thing if I don't know that we have the ability to make that asset or that we don't have that. So like I know that when I watched previous board artists when I was in production be very diligent about that. I know as a production person I really appreciated that because I was like, now I don't have to rush to our designers and be like, oh god, the board team like added this weird thing and we got to ship in like a week. What is this? We can't do that. And I'm like, no. I'm not going to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
If I see something and I know that's not how that asset works, or we don't, I know, unless I know we have that, I'm gonna check in with our prod team because I don't. Yeah, so like little examples of that, like where like knowing how things in your production work, so that you can ask those clarifying questions. Because if you know that ahead of time, that's less notes later, and less notes is good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think knowing all those organizational things of working production helps me currently prepare for like, oh, this is what they're going to need, or oh, this is what they kind of look out for. I am going to make sure that is reflected in my work. Also, because I'm very I'm very familiar with how all of our files and stuff are organized in our team because I helped build that.
Mm-hmm.
I can snoop around a little bit in our production
Mm.
files because like I in my free time I will read all our scripts and I will like watch our current animatics and everything because I'm like, oh, how's it looking and how's it being executed, right? All the way to like sometimes I'll be like, can I find our recent like V1 of animation? I just want to see what it looks like, even if it looks like a little bit poo poo without its all lighting and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just knowing all those organizational things helps inform me, and so I can have those already without asking additional questions in my work. Very long-winded answer, but yes.
No, that makes sense because I feel like, not to like try to call anyone out or
Yeah.
anything, but a lot of times artists only really know the pipeline to their
Yeah.
immediate piece of it. So they know who they're getting it from and then where it goes from
Yeah.
after that. Or like they just give it to someone to like
Right.
take it away.
Yeah.
Like I've talked to people who are like, oh, I don't know what happens. Like when I'm done with
Right,
it, like
right,
it
right,
just
right, right. Yeah.
it's gone, and then like another thing appears on my computer, and then I
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's good, like you were saying, to have this overall,
Yeah.
this large picture of the whole scope of things, and I mean that's just going to prepare you for if you were to like move up into a director or showrunner or EP or whatever position.
Yeah.
Shoot for the stars, Sadako.
I am just trying to even grasp with the idea of becoming a board artist first. Like, I'm like, I just want to feel like which is maybe a downfall because, like, so many people are like, especially women, are like, oh, if I'm not like 75% ready, or if I'm not 90% ready for this job, I'm not qualified. And I'm like, there's so many people that could still do the job without 100% qualifications. And while I don't want to be one of those people that's just like, I can never get it because I'm not qualified, I absolutely know I am that person.
Well, I feel like it's not even just your own drawbacks, but
Yeah.
also it's about timing and luck.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And the people
Yeah.
like
Oh, for sure.
how you got your PA job, you knew someone from your
Yes.
school that
Yeah.
brought you on to Spirit.
Oh, absolutely.
And then thankfully you're in the right time to be
Yes.
able to become a revisionist also from your other show.
Oh, no, sure.
And I mean, I haven't seen your revisionist work, but I'm sure you're ready.
Thanks for the confidence.
Yeah, no problem.
I want to become a better board artist. I feel like I still have lots to learn, but one step at a time.
Did you mention it to your director?
I mean, like I think most people like figure, oh, if you're doing
so you didn't.
I didn't, but I mean, like
Okay.
I've mentioned it to our supervising producer, who is like, so him and our mutual coworker friend Daisy, right, who we both worked on on Spirit. Both of those two were very aware when I was in production. Oh, she's interested in boarding, and so they know I want to become a board artist. And I think most people are like, oh, that means also a director. I'm like, that's far in the future, and I'm not sure. But so those two are aware, and those two are the people that gave me this job because they're like, hey, I think you could do this. We'll train you, and we'll get you there, which was very nice. Very, very nice.
Did you say something to your director still?
I mean, I've talked to some of my directors, yeah, and been like, hey, I think I will say an interesting thing about working remote and having my whole boarding career happen remotely so far is it's harder to have those conversations. I think anyone who's working from home, like, I think, and interestingly enough, this is kind of something I actually miss about working production, is that like people in production have a reason to talk to everybody or even talk to people like in their direct like teams more versus like artists, especially if you're not in an art directing position of any kind, you don't always have a need to reach out to your team. And without having that physicalness of being around and being like, hey, let's grab lunch or grab a coffee or just like peering over and seeing what your peers are doing, it's hard to have those sort of like, hey, what are your future goal conversations? It just doesn't come as naturally. And I think that's personally something I'm also sort of trying to wrestle with, is like, I would really love to have those conversations and learn those extra steps, but Like, I know at DreamWorks, something that was really great, and I feel like this happens at a lot of studios, right? Is that there is like a culture of like, hey, let's just go grab something to eat and we'll just talk about what all of our goals are.
Yeah.
And that, to me, those were always some of the best conversations. And I miss that a lot. It feels a lot more strained, I think, having to always be like, hey, I need to schedule a Zoom call at this specific time for everything.
What are some specific roadblocks you try to watch out for?
Ah, uh, there's a lot. That sounds bad. But I think when I say that, I think a lot of the common roadblocks, I think a lot of artists sort of go through. So imposter syndrome. I'm trying to be funny. I'm not. Imposter syndrome, like things like motivation, and oh, I thought of another one earlier and I can't remember. But I think mostly those sort of things, like imposter syndrome, in sense that I think a lot of artists feel that way. I have yet to really meet one that doesn't have some sort of imposter syndrome, or like at least maybe a healthy version of, oh, I need to get better, right? uh I think there's a healthy amount of that, and then an unhealthy amount of that becomes imposter syndrome, where again, I'm throwing this around a lot, but shortly explain, it's like that feeling of like, if you're put in a position but you feel insecure about not feeling qualified, or that it's like, I have no reason to be here. I've definitely felt that before. Or that it's like, oh, this could have gone to someone much more experienced. Like I know currently I'm working with like some amazing people right now that I know. I'm like, you guys have an amazing network. And you guys have been, and most of my directors have been like working for as long as I've been alive. And I'm like, you guys know so many cool people. You literally could have gone with anyone else. Right. So that sort of feeling. And kind of connected is like motivation. So, not to get like too deep into it, but like depression and stuff affects motivation, or even like working a job. And so, if you're trying to get better, the motivation to work outside of work after your 8-hour job, whether that's you're working like at Starbucks and just trying to, do that grind, or you're working a professional job like at a studio already, and even just trying to improve there. It's hard to feel motivated to do those projects outside of work. And again, if you have anything like depression or anxiety on top of that, it makes it very difficult. So I think those are sort of the things that I run into a lot, where I know personally, especially since I'm coming up like on my 1 year of doing this, I'm realizing, oh, I should probably definitely, I wanted to give myself a year to just sort of like settle and absorb the job. But now I'm like, I should really start taking more time outside of work to creatively better myself. Like, you're going to learn a lot on the job, but also I think there is still a lot that you need to personally practice in your own time, but it's hard to do that. And so I know that's where I'm at, where I'm like, I should really do something. But Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Nintendo Switch just came out with the DLC, and so it's just really hard to really want to.
Yeah, like what do you pick? Like
Yeah, I'm like,
improving yourself creatively
or improving my
or
island.
improving your island. It's
Also,
tough.
yeah, it's tough. Again, I don't want to get too like therapy and into it, but I think a lot of artists, right, have like mental roadblocks in terms of like depression or burnout. Burnout, that was the other one I wanted to mention. Burnout is hard. Someone might be like, you've only been doing this for a short amount of time. How can you be burnt out already? One, it's never too early to be burnt out, in my opinion. Two, work from home, I do think makes it harder. And three, I've just had personal experiences in school. Like, so again, this was even before the industry, right? Where if you have especially if you're at a young age, I feel like if you're burnt out at a young age, someone could argue that it's better because at least you're getting burnt out now and you can heal later. Personally, I'm like, I don't know, I don't feel like I'm never the same person again. But if you've ever been a college student that's been burnt out by something and it really makes you question if this is the road for you, it's really hard to feel like engaging in it again, and also feeling like, but I'm so early in my career. Like, if I don't feel this now, can I ever do anything ever again? So I guess, like, and you can kind of have that at any point of your life. But I just want to like shout out to the young folks out there that already have experienced burnout in some way. It happens and it sucks. I don't talk about it a lot, but like being on Spirit or being on a good crew really helps with burnout. Like I was super burnt out after college, and so being around really good and supportive people and creative people was really great. And to me, that was like, I think what helped me get out of that. But if you've had a rough experience trying on your journey and you're not even in it, and then you feel like guilt, I know I literally just said that was a solution for me. I don't think that's necessarily the solution, but I'm just calling it out and being like, it's hard. There's someone out there that sees you, and it's me, I guess.
Yeah, no, it is really hard. So thank you for mentioning it. What support resources do you use or recommend for someone trying to break in?
Well, like one just like easy website that I think a lot of board people I've talked to tend to like drop this one is, I think it's like floobydoobie.com. I think a lot of people that do, like, if you've been looking into this for a while, you've probably heard of it. But if you haven't, you should check it out. It's just, I think it's like a blog site or something where someone's just collected like a bunch of sort of board ref. So that's like in general, like just basically like basic things like talking about like the 180 rule and what that means, to like having specific examples from specific shows. Like they have like a lot of reference from like SpongeBob, and I think I've seen some for like even Craig of the Creek on there. So like that whole range of AIRE, right, and more. Like I think I was looking, they've still been trying to update even more, right? So it's just like a good collection of different information. But I know personally, a lot of my growth personally has been through classes. So I say classes, I've only really taken one class actually, and it was really intense, but I learned a lot from it. So I think for a lot of people, like especially if anyone listening is an artist that craves a lot more structure, or it's helpful, definitely look into classes. I've known a lot of people who've done really well through classes. Like I think like our mutual friend Mike, who's also a board artist now, also is like a huge like proponent for taking like online courses. So I think that's great. So that's like, I know like there's the Rad How To class that is doing stuff right now, and I know a bunch of others. Like, is it CDA?
Yes.
Concept
Yeah,
Design
CDA.
Academy. Yeah, does a lot, and I think specific board artists even will do their own classes. Like I know Steve On, who used to do Voltron, right? And I think recently was at Nick. He holds a lot of classes. So like chances are, if you really respect a director, they might hold their own classes, right? So look into that. Then you could literally learn from the people you love the most. Otherwise, I think YouTube's a great platform. I know I'm that person that be watching every frame of painting, even though he stopped years ago. I just watch a lot of cinematography videos, even from live action a lot. Like I'm a huge horror person, and so I've been really going on the Mike Flanagan binge. But so like just like looking up videos on YouTube from like your favorite directors and being like, hey, they have like a shot breakdown, right? I think those are really fun. And again, they even if they're live action, right, we should be looking at things not just animation, right? And sort of gathering, oh, that's how they approached it. Or, oh, when we talk about things like lenses, it feels a lot different because like lenses kind of do and don't exist in animation because they don't do and don't work the same. The way that you sell a shot can change with lenses. I'm saying this because I'm really just learning it. So I'm it's like the learning through teaching, right? I guess. So like watching videos that again might be for live action folks, but it can translate into animation. And just there's so much information out there right now, and just trying to take that time to sometimes look into that more in terms of like self-study. Oh, also follow your favorite artists. Some of them will also, whether they hold classes or not, some of them, like I know on Twitter or like Instagram, will be like, hey, these are the things I do, you should practice that. I'm like, okay, maybe I will if I am not playing Animal Crossing.
Right.
Yes.
Top priority, Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
So, Sadako.
Yes.
What was your upbringing like?
I grew up as a child.
Wow.
Wow, I know. I had a pretty fortunate childhood, I think. I really can't complain. I think, a lot of people are like, you're Asian, or your parents like, no, be a lawyer. And I was like, no. Very, very thankfully, both my parents have always been pretty supportive. So like from a young age, my mom's always been like one of those women that are like, no, my girls are going to take over the world and they're going to do the best things. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so, and because both of my parents do like kind of like activism work or like have and do a lot of like community work, we were raised to try to be very confident in what we do and also help our communities. And I think in doing so, both of them also know a lot of artists. Like my dad is also an architect. So there's some art there, I guess. As me and my sister grew up, they were always very like, you should chase your dreams and also hopefully, you know, do good for other people. So when we started realizing our interests in drawing and stuff like that, because I do animation and stuff or boarding, my sister kind of does like design and stuff. They were like, yeah, you guys should pursue those things. So when I went to high school, I actually went to an art magnet high school in San Francisco. At first, they were like, hey, do you want to apply to like the smart schools? And I was like, I can, but I really suck at math. But we can try this. Still suck at math. But they were
That's
like, well,
hard.
she's trying her best, and her best seems to be art. So we'll let her do that. I feel like this was the most messy way to explain my childhood.
No,
but
you're fine.
but I think from there, like every point, very thankfully, my parents have been like, oh, she's into drawing. Oh, she's into like this anime thing. I guess that's cool. It's making her learn Japanese with her grandparents. That's neat. Oh, she does this weird thing called cosplay. Oh, that's like fun. They're like weird costumes. Oh, that's cool, I guess. And now she's doing art. And yeah, so I'm very thankful that my parents have been very supportive. And I think because of that, I've been able to very freely sort of pursue the things I've been interested in.
Oh, that's very nice.
I have a very uneventful artist backstory.
That's fine. You know, it
I
doesn't always need to be tragic
yeah,
story.
like like on my own personal health, I'm glad about it. But also this, not but also, but like it's just like you don't have to suffer to be an artist, hopefully. I hate that trope.
Yeah, seriously. Or
Yeah.
even the starving artist trope.
Yeah.
Like,
Like again, like I think, you know, experiences in your life that color your art are really important, but at the same time, I don't think that artists should work to their detriment because you know how many artists that would exist if they weren't, you know, self-doubting and hating themselves. We'd have so many cool people
mm-hmm.
that if they were able to feel comfortable could share their awesome ideas with us. Not, you know, we don't need to be cutting off our ears to make great art.
That's true. Everyone
Yeah.
keep your ears if you can.
Yes, yes. Do not Van Gogh that route. I haven't changed that much.
Clearly. Outside of work, what kind of hobbies, side hustles, or interests do you engage?
So big surprise, I'm really into Animal Crossing.
Oh, I
Yeah.
haven't noticed. Are you?
But when I'm not doing Animal Crossing, or so to speak, I recently, this has been like a recent sort of thing. I've been actually trying to be more involved with the Animation Guild. So that's the animation union. So there's that, and that's been good. So helping out, try to reach out to our membership because I think it's important to involve and educate our community. So I don't know, little plug, I guess. If anyone's been paying attention to recent news, the IA, which is the IATSE, who like the larger union that covers most of Hollywood, their recent deals expired. And so there was a huge sort of thing in terms of like trying to negotiate their basic agreement, which is again basically the contract that goes over like their basic rights, their basic worker rights. There's a lot of controversy over that, and a strike almost happened. But so in light of that, right, the animation guild and the animation industry, right, we also have our own contract, which is very similar and builds off of that contract. So I think because I saw a lot of things happening there, it got me more engaged in trying to be more active in my community, right? And it's been, I think, to sort of my earlier point about like it's been hard being able to talk to artists being remote. This has been a very interesting way of getting to know other people in my field and even getting to see people that I haven't seen in a very long time. So that's been cool. But yeah, so I've been trying to do that. Otherwise, again, the classic other nerd thing. So like watching good and trash TV, playing video games. Again, it's mostly Animal Crossing. Let's be real. Still trying to play D&D despite all the remote stuff. And when I can, and if it's safe, hanging out with people, mostly my roommates. So I guess they're already in my bubble anyway.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I guess that's kind of the side stuff I do. Yeah.
Very nice. I like it.
Thank you.
Okay. Now is the time for rapid questions, where I'll ask you a series of any kind of type of question, really.
Uh-huh.
And
We gotta go fast?
And you gotta go fast.
Please don't ask me Sonic questions. I don't actually know.
Can I ask you rapid Sonic questions?
No, if you do, they're not gonna mean anything. Because I do not know. I've watched the Sonic movie. That is it. And anything you've told me.
Choose one famous person from history you want on your team during a zombie apocalypse.
Why is it that whenever I'm asked a question, I forget all people in existence, including myself?
How about this? How about I change it?
Okay.
Choose a fictional character from a video game to be on your zombie apocalypse. But it can't be a character from a zombie video game. So
that's a good. That's
Evil.
Good. Oh no!
Yeah, no Left 4 Dead, no Back 4 Blood.
I know you mentioned Resident Evil, but I was like, wait, the person I want to meet the most is absolutely not someone you want to meet. I have a weird obsession about the baby from Village. I think it's awful.
Quick Resident Evil Village spoilers. Is it like the flesh one that like chases you around the building?
I love the baby. It's just like yummy, and I'm like, oh, it's awful.
It's awful.
I'm that person that I'd be like watching something. I'm like, oh, that's a horrifying thing. Oh, but that's super fascinating. Like, how'd you do that till before? So I love that is like my favorite part of the game.
That was the most horrific part of the game.
I legit listened to just the ambiance music from just that chase sequence.
What's wrong with
fun. I'm sorry. I'm a chaos. That is not the answer to your question at all, though.
Yeah, that's the zombie. Let's say that's the zombie. And you have to find someone to help you destroy that horrific thing.
I mean, like no. This is fast round. You should just think of this. Sorry. Well, now that we were just talking about Sonic, I just keep thinking about Sonic characters. So
go ahead. Use Sonic
character. No thought. I was like Knuckles. And this is not the real answer because, like, again, if I'm supposed to just answer this no thought, just first answer because we were talking about that, I was like, Knuckles. He looks like he could beat up a man, right?
No, don't sacrifice my precious boy Knuckles into that baby flesh monster. No.
Okay. All right. I'll try to give it a second thought. Well, but he's not a good guy either. What? My second thought was Hero Prime
from Minecraft.
I think really because you're like you cannot think about this or this is supposed to be lightning round.
And that's what pops in your head was Hero Brian.
The next video game character you could think of, and it was Hero Brian for some reason. I'm like, well, he is very powerful. If you had him on your team, and he was like, yeah, I'll protect, which is weird because again, he's like a villain, right?
Yeah.
But it's like one of those things. I was like, well, if you got like a super powerful like evil dude that's like fighting for you, though, he like whizzes in and out. He could. Well, I guess he can't really scare zombies, right? Because they have no fear.
Yeah,
but he could probably, I assume, like if in your bad situation, like pick you up and because he has like the Enderman powers, right? Like if he could just like block, if he could just pick me up, like the Enderman just like pick up blocks and just like disappear. Like if he could just do that and whiz me to like a safe place, that could be cool.
Why not just have Enderman pick you up and whiz you off to a safe place?
Because I didn't think about Enderman first. It's true. I do, and like I remember. Oh God, this is a throwback. I remember the first time hearing about Enderman was from Yogcast, if anyone remembers. Yogscast. I love YouTube of 2009. I was terrified. I was a little baby, and I'm like, oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it was scary business.
Kind of funny.
That's when Slenderman was like all the rage, you know?
I guess I'll just lock in my answer as Hero Prime because that was the only one I could think of.
Perfect.
Other than Knuckles, Echidna.
Other than Knuckles. All right, well, that was a long answer.
I'm very sorry. Rambling's my specialty.
Cake or pie?
Pie. I like cake, but I like savory food. So it's hard to have a savory cake. Also, I feel like I much prefer a kind of shitty pie to a shitty cake because I love I love crust. So like good crust makes me so happy. And also again, I can't really think of like, if we're thinking about like a regular cake, I can't think of like a salty cake versus I'm like,
No.
oh, I love like pot pie is really great. I love pot pie. So
Oh yeah, that's a savory
yes,
pie.
savory pie.
Yeah,
And
okay.
yeah,
Well, I know this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Dog or cat?
cat. That being said, I did foster a dog for a short time over quarantine. So it did give
Oh.
points to dogs. And I've never been a dog auntie. It's just I've mostly had experience with cats. So I have my bias.
Would you ever consider adopting a dog after your foster time?
I think it would have to be a very specific dog, and I would definitely need to have like a house or something, unless it was like a really old, slow dude. Like just like like a little guy that's like, I'm tired. And I'm like, so am I. We'll just walk twice, like two, maybe three times a day, and then just take naps. That's great.
Yeah. I have the energy level of a senior dog for sure.
Because you also wanted a dog, right? I know you're just a big animal person in general. But like, so it's my roommate's also like that, where it's like, oh God, I have to pick animals. But
Yeah, the
yeah.
list has only gotten bigger over here. So, I decided I'm waiting to get a dog till I
That's
have a
fair.
house.
Yeah,
Um,
understandable.
and as you know, I want a rabbit,
Yes.
but now I kind of want a bearded dragon.
Ooh.
Yeah, I want
Okay.
both of
Yeah.
them. And then I want a duck also, and
Oh,
a
duck.
goat and a pig eventually.
Yes. I
Yeah.
I feel like if I had, if it was like one of those, it's like in a perfect situation where you always have like the time and energy and space for an animal, I would want like a chinchilla or like a stoat. Just because they're so
Oh,
funny.
this is so
They're so
funny.
funny. I love chinchillas and their little dust baths. I'm like, oh, you're just so funky. Haha. And you're soft. Haha. And I hear they have really like great, or like they really have distinct personalities. And I guess so long as it's a good chinchilla with a good personality, that would
Mm-hmm.
be cool. But they need like their own room. But also like stoats or weasels, I think, are kind of the same. Yes. I like ferrets. I'm not a big Pokemon person, but I was like, ferrets are great. Ferrets
Oh, what
are.
about ferret then?
Oh, wait, you're right. Ferret. I always. Yes. Ferret stoats are good. Weasel. Yeah, actually, over weasels, because weasels are more carnivorous, if I'm understanding. Actually, no, all of them are. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. They're just all seem like long little cat rodents, and that's a great combination, and I like that. And they just flip around, and I'm like, haha, that's funny. They're just a little living. It feels like an otter just decided to live on land and like to dig. I'm like, haha, that's cute.
Do you think you could find Bigfoot?
Like personally,
Yeah.
I think if I made an effort to find Bigfoot, I don't think so. Almost, if that makes
Okay.
sense. I feel like there's so many people that put so much effort into trying to find Bigfoot and don't, or I don't, or claim they do and I don't trust it. I'm, okay, also, I'm not here saying I necessarily believe in Bigfoot. I'm like 50-50, like almost like if you want to exist, you can Bigfoot. That's up to you. But
Live your life, Bigfoot.
live your life, Bigfoot. If you do and don't want to be in existence on Earth, that's fine. That's cool. But I think again, I feel like Bigfoot is like one of those cryptids, like most cryptids, that like it's almost like they have to allow you to perceive them. So if I
Mm-hmm.
put in all that effort to find Bigfoot, I feel like it's like I'm trying too hard and I would never be able to find Bigfoot. So, short answer, I guess technically, if Bigfoot exists, I potentially could find Bigfoot, though I feel like Southern California is not the place for Bigfoot, but what do I know? But not with effort.
I feel like maybe you'd be able to find Bigfoot if you put in no effort and you just like went to a
Yeah.
bar and he was just like
Like
hanging out
there's
with like
I mean
a
to be
beer.
fair, sometimes he do just sound like a hipster, right? So maybe that's where he be, right? Do you
Yeah.
think you could find Bigfoot?
Absolutely not. I don't go outside.
That is also a good answer. That is also fair. I'm like, yeah, that's true.
I mean, he could be walking by right now and I never
That's
know.
true. He unless he's coming into my house, I'd be like, "Excuse me, you're trespassing, sir."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have a warrant?
Yeah. Do you have a warrant? Do you pay rent? I don't think so.
Proof.
Is there a Bigfoot TikTok? Sorry. Imagine if Bigfoot was on TikTok. Oh my god. Sorry. That was just a weird. Anyway, ask your question.
Do you play any musical instruments?
I used to play clarinet, not dropping Squidward memes, but because my family, is a classic, haha, you're in like elementary or middle school, you should learn how to play an instrument. We have 5, choose from them. And my family apparently just has a lineage of playing clarinet for school.
Oh, okay.
So I like my uncle passed down his to my dad, and then both my cousins played the same clarinet, and then I received it. So I was like, I guess. So there's that. Otherwise, I also I kind of play kazoo on sometimes. For listening people, I have a gold kazoo that I did play while walking on my graduation. Because I'm that person, I guess. So I don't know what that means, but I do that, and then I also it's run out of battery, and I don't know if I really play it. But the automaton, I think. I don't know if that counts as an instrument, but he's just fun.
It's categorized under musical instruments when you shop for it. So
okay, so yes,
it's an instrument.
I have dabbled in automaton.
Have you ever believed in Santa Claus?
Yeah, I mean, yes, at some point I did.
How did that go?
I don't know, pretty classic, I think, where it's like, you go from one moment being like, yes, an old fat white man will come down my chimney and give me a gift, even though my family's Buddhist. That's what just everyone tells you. So come down the chimney.
Okay, yeah. Continue.
And then I don't know. I feel like, do you ever have those memories where you're not sure if you made it up or if it was an actual memory, or you heard about it and it became a memory? But I have a memory of then one year creeping out to my living room and then watching my dad put the gifts under the tree. And I think that's what broke the spell of the belief in Santa Claus.
Oh.
Other than, the usual, you're late elementary school or middle school and people are like, Santa Claus is canceled because he's fake. He's not around. And I'm like, oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's unfortunate. Too bad your dad wasn't wearing red pants.
Right? Do you believe in Santa Claus? If you do, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I did until I asked that question. Now the illusion's broken.
I have.
Okay. And now give me a word that is not a proper noun.
Okay.
Or an adjective.
Okay. Uh-huh.
For the letter W.
Wendigo?
Wendigo?
Yeah. Like the Native American legend creature, I think. Does that count as a proper noun?
Wendigo. Google that it said when to go. So sure, let's just take it. Thank you so much, Sadako, for speaking with us today. It's been a pleasure. Do you have any social media you would like to share with us?
Sure. If you want to see my art, I do post on Instagram at Dako_of_tacos, all lowercase, yes. You can also find me on Twitter, where I do post art, but I'm really mostly memeing and posting about Animal Crossing, but you're welcome to listen to that. And that's Dako of Tacos, no underscores. And both, so Dako of Tacos spelled D-A-C, no, oh, I got my name wrong. DAKOOFTACOS.
Perfect.
Yeah, that might be confusing, but I guess we'll find out, or I won't.
We'll find out. And thank you, the listener, for tuning in. Please follow Creating in Color on Instagram and Twitter, and feel free to submit any questions for upcoming guests through our social media or the email creatingincolorcast@gmail.com. If you are interested in following me, you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and twitch.tv at Maybe It's Kaybe. Thanks to Namikaze for creating the ending theme. You can find more of his music on his SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Namikaze. That's Namikaze. Thanks to everyone sharing Creating in Color with their friends, family, and coworkers. We really appreciate any word of mouth or even to help push our hashtag on social media, hashtag Creating in Colorcast. If you're interested in supporting us, you can find us on Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/creatingincolor. And this will actually be the last episode of the year.
Whoa! Sorry.
Yeah, way to be the season finale, Sadako.
Whoa, wait, you didn't tell me this.
Surprise! You're the finale.
Thanks.
So the next episode will be premiering on February 24th, 2022. And as of now, I am trying to have an interior designer on the podcast, so feel free to submit any interior designer questions. But yeah, we will be taking a short break. Thank you everyone for supporting us for season 2.
Yay!
So before we wrap up, do you have any departing words of wisdom for everybody listening, Sadako?
I have 2. 1, you should check out the Creating in Color stickers that I believe are still up.
Yes, yes.
But they're cool. You should do that. It's cool. They're good. 2, just keep doing your best. Even if you feel guilty for not working, you should go back into it. Just like in Animal Crossing, where you might feel guilty about going back to your island and being like, oh no, I've made all my villagers sad. The reality is they're all happy to see you back. So whenever, just like in Animal Crossing, because I'm that person, your creative life and endeavors will always still be there for you, even if you need a break. And, with a little bit of time, you can get back into it and your art can still love you, I guess. I don't know. That's something I'm trying to learn.
Aw, that's beautiful.
Good. Thanks.
Thank you so much. This has been Creating in Color. Keep striving, keep trying, keep creating. Bye.
Bye.